We are good.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Rules Committee meeting for the Cleveland Community Police Commission. It is 6:05 and it is Monday, May 15th. So welcome to everybody online. And I'm just going to do a roll call. Shandra, Benito has an excused absence. Charles Donaldson.
Present.
Keith Van Leer.
Present.
And Sharina Zayed is also absent, and I'm here, but we do have a quorum, so we'll continue with the meeting. Okay. So this meeting, we're just going to go back and hopefully finish as many sections of old business from 2.1 to 2.4 as possible. Does anybody, I think we should probably just go through, we went through some of it already, but I think we should try to finalize it now that people have looked at it a few times.
To the chair, I just want, I think you should acknowledge the co-chairs being in the meeting for the sake of the minutes.
Okay, so yes, we also have our co-chairs, Audrianna Rodriguez and Jan Ridgeway are present. Okay, so let's start with 2.1. This section deals with, also I do want to get a quick update from Jason. Can we finalize the bylaws and publish it? I've had many requests for the public to be able to have a copy of that so they can better understand how our meetings are run. Is that finalized yet?
The bylaws have been finalized. The newest version is updated, so we'll get it on the web in a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll send out a link. And we have one more guest. Hi, Lou. Okay, so we are going to start with section 2.1, which involves coordination, relationship management, and dispute resolution. And this involves just basically the overview of how we relate to various entities in the city. Okay. Do we have any previous thoughts about this?
To the chair, could you just remind me what the yellow highlighted and the red highlighted means? I forgot what the
I think
difference is.
the yellow is Jason.
And to the chair, in the original bylaws, the yellow is editable, and red is something that's right in 115. In this, we started talking about it, so some of these sections are just things we've already talked about that are highlighted, but for the most part, unless it's red in here or it says it's quoting 115 like here, it is editable.
Well, since we want to finalize this, why don't we read through everything and see if there's anything that needs to be changed. Let's just start with 2.1. Do you want to read?
To the chair, do we have a printed copy of this for our guest?
Yeah. We can run a print. We gave them out at the last meeting, the meeting before, so I'm out of them right now. I'll print some more for her here. But Lou, you should have gotten one the last rules meeting.
I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it here with me today.
Okay.
I came from the
You're welcome to
meeting.
pull a chair closer so you can see on the
Oh, okay.
on the screen here.
Well, I came from other meetings too.
Yeah, just so you can. There you go. So long as you can see.
Okay, we'll just go over. I think that's probably the best way to finish all these sections.
Okay, so we've read this before, and I can read it again. Hopefully, people know if they. Do you want me to go one section at a time, one paragraph at a time? How far down do we want to go before we discuss?
Why don't we do section at a time and then, things that are. Yeah, it seems like. How about just read till number 1?
Okay, read up to this where it starts listing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 2.1 oversight coordination, police CPC relationship management and dispute resolution. The commission was granted broad powers under Charter Section 115.5 to exercise stronger civilian control and accountability over the division of police. Section 1.1 of the administrative rules contains the full list of duties and authority of the commission according to the charter. Controlling powers explicitly stated in the charter section as adopted by the voters includes final authority on whether discipline imposed on a police officer is sufficient, Final authority on establishment of policy, applications, and examinations by which new police recruits must be sought out and recruited and screened, including screened for bias, and final authority over police policy, procedures, and training regimens.
Okay, I'll continue reading. Also included are powers to investigate, audit, and make recommendations and provide technical assistance in nearly all domains of police management and divisional human resource matters. Commissioners may also compel the Civilian Police Review Board, CPRB, and Office of Professional Standards, OPS, to conduct investigations as well as broadly audit investigative practices of these complementary civilian organizations.
Okay, and the complexity of the systems in place as a result of Charter 115.5 will require a great deal of strategic coordination to ensure efficiency and maximum value of taxpayer expenditures. The responsibilities of each organization can overlap and result in unnecessary duplication of efforts, costly court conflicts, and loss of community trust in the entire system. In order to reduce conflict and increase efficiency, every effort should be made by members of the commission and its staff to, and then we go into the list here of three things.
So why don't we go back? Was there anything that we noticed in the first section?
No, I just, since I am new to the committee relatively, I wasn't here when you discussed this last time. Were there any issues that rose to the top or that were particularly part of the discussion, or is this just?
I don't remember anything. It was just, I think we were trying to process all of it. So, Commissioner Rodriguez?
Thank you. So I just had a quick question for point 2 under the highlighted part about, the attending different
We're
meetings.
not at that part yet. We're only to.
Oh, okay. Thank
Okay, so thank you. Anything for the top? Let's see, control if there were just close is sufficient. That's okay. I think there's some just minor, maybe grammatical
So
things.
this was clearly developed based on 115.5. So it's laying out what we're supposed to do, and in terms of coordination, that I think that seems to be the most important part. Like we should be coordinating, conducting these regular meetings, right? Is there anything it just seems pretty straightforward to me?
To the chair, these are unique to us. So there are lessons learned in here, and there are recommendations from meetings we've gone through and things we've had to have mediated by the monitors in the past, and the DOJ, places where conflict has arisen with the previous commission. So we're taking those lessons that we've learned and writing them down to avoid future conflict, and organizational learning are important. So that's what the foundation of this is you have to have some rules of the road so we don't have to repeat things we've already been through in learning as a whole. But like with all rules, we're going to learn new things and we're going to have to amend. So because we're drafting this for the first time, there's never been an operating manual at this level before. I fully anticipate that we'll be like, well, that didn't work. We're going to have to tweak this or change the rule. Even in some of our bylaws that we passed, we've already identified some things where we need to go back and edit and change them. So they're not anything in here that you approve is not, it's not forever, right? You can learn and grow within these rules, but you need something to guide you at the beginning. So when you think about it, take it as that, as everything in here is procedural and that can be changed, except for where there's law, which are very few things at this point. It's going to reference the law and you're building the procedures off of that.
Okay, I think that part's okay.
So what are carrying on, in order to reduce conflict and increase efficiency, every effort should be made by members of the commission and staff to, 1, conduct regular meetings with the Director of Public Safety, the Chief of Police, Police Commanders, the Inspector General, the Superintendent of Internal Affairs, representatives of the Civilian Police Review Board, and the Office of Professional Standards. 2, attend regular meetings of importance of each complementary organizations described above, such as. So it's a such as, it's not every one of these or or a mandate like that, right? These are just listings of meetings we know about. Civilian Police Review Board meetings, CompStat, they changed the name of that, and other data sharing meetings, District Police Committee meetings, policy review committees, training review board meetings, force review board meetings, mental health response advisory committee, and community and property policing committee meetings. Commissioners may be assigned as liaisons to regular meetings. In addition, a member of the staff shall always attend these meetings when available, regardless if a commissioner is in attendance or not. The executive director or their designee has sole authority to determine which staff members attend commission meetings and other city meetings related to the work of the commission. This list is not inclusive of all meetings that are relevant to the commission. Meetings are subject to change in names over time. So that highlighted area, we already kind of discussed this the first time we looked at it, and we added that because so that it's clear that that staff are directed by the executive director, and also that it's not, commissioners don't have to attend every one of these, right? So they're bringing reports back to the commission.
So I guess my question is, because it says sole authority, so I will hope that all the staff are able to attend. So if there's ever an instance where the executive director says no, would there be punishment in that instance? Or I guess because it says sole authority, and I just didn't understand how to interpret that. So I am aware in the charter that it does give you just oversight of the staff. But if, let's just say a staff member decided to attend a city meeting, would there be consequences because of this clause? Or I guess that's my question.
So this is related to the business these meetings are the ones listed here, are the business operations of they're not community meetings. These are meetings that are business meetings with the division or OPS or whatever it may be. So that's in there because what can happen is a commissioner can tell an employee to go to a meeting, right, on their behalf, but that's not how it works when you have staff and the executive director. You can ask, the executive director to have that committee member go, but it's really the executive director's decision to distribute resources how they see fit. So if there's 5 meetings in a week and a lot of different projects going on, the managers in the office decide who goes to what meetings, et cetera, not the commissioners. So the commissioners will say, we want you at these meetings, we don't go, and then the executive director decides who will attend those meetings. That's all that is. It's not
So I just wanted to make sure, let's just say maybe I invite Ryan somewhere, there won't be consequences because he decided to attend. That's what I'm asking. Would there be consequences or?
Well, to the chair, that's where right there in the initial communication stuff, in the executive director and the bylaws, that's why a request like that should go through the executive director. So if you want Ryan to go to a business meeting, right, not a community meeting, these are the business meetings, right? So for instance, let's say you were assigned to MRAC, right? And you're like, oh, I can't make MRAC. Ryan, will you go to MRAC for me, right? The appropriate way to do that is to just send an email to the executive director and say, hey, I talked to Ryan. He agreed to go to MRAC for me today, right? But in general, commissioners shouldn't be giving direct orders to staff to do things without going through staff management, whether it's me or an assistant manager or whatever it may be. So that's why that says that, right? Could Ryan be subject to discipline for going to a meeting? If it's a general error, like you guys just were like, hey, in a moment, and probably not. I mean, we got a lot of meetings to cover here. I think that would be an extreme case of why that would happen. I just,
I think it's more important if you instruct him to go to a meeting and he doesn't go.
Right. That's a different scenario. So when we establish these schedules, right, we need to cover as much meetings as possible. Now we can't be at every one because we're a small shop and we have a lot of meetings of our own. So these are secondary meetings. They're a secondary priority. The first priority is to cover all your meetings, right? So to be fully staffed at these meetings, your committee meetings, right? And then as time builds, but most of these are going to happen during the day, 8 to 5 p.m. And so a lot of times with commissioners who are working and have other responsibilities, they're not going to be able to attend anyway. So we'll have to send staff.
Commissioner Ridgeway.
To the chair, there are 2 comments basically, and one is to sort of a clarification or some addition to, the issue that you raised. I think one of the reasons too why it would be important to go through the executive director for staff is that if they are building accrued time, he needs to know so that he'll know how to adjust schedules to accommodate that, so I wanted to comment on that. I also want to back up to, and I had mentioned this before, I want to mention it again. This begins with the paragraph, the complexity of the systems in place as a result of Charter 115-5 will require a great deal of strategic coordination. I saw that as a potential, it can be a potential problem then, and I still see it as a potential problem because of just what it says, that the responsibilities of each organization can overlap and unnecessary duplication of efforts. I think what we were talking about quite recently in establishing that schedule, of future activities and meetings, somehow we have to make sure that these meetings with the Director of Public Safety, Chief of Police and all are actually listed on that schedule. So when it's up for review, for report back to the courts or to Delonte, when he made his speech about us before, that this is on the schedule. We know that there is a time and place where we would be meeting with each of these different entities. I see that as a potential problem if we don't schedule it and then we come up short, at the end of the review period or the assessment period. So I just wanted to go on the record that I saw it as a potential weakness if we don't schedule it in then, and I still see it as a potential weakness unless we are proactive, and get all of these things scheduled. So we'll know that we actually are doing these things.
So Jason, are we missing, what are the ones that we are missing, do you know?
Missing,
Are what Commissioner Ridgeway mentioned, are there ones that are not yet scheduled and that's why they're not on the calendar?
so this is just telling us,
But, yeah.
so we write down what we say we're gonna do and then we try to do it, right? If we don't write this down, we're putting it on us to do what the citizens asked us to do, and that's get involved in this, right? So we can wait for them to call and schedule us in meetings, but this, writing it down here says we will make our best efforts, right? To one, mitigate unnecessary duplication of efforts and take our own ownership of scheduling these meetings. Most of these meetings will be done via staff, right? You guys aren't going to be out there conducting, 10 hours of meetings on top of what you have. Some of them will be regular appearances, at your meetings, right? So you can ask, maybe you'll decide, and we don't have to define it because then we're stuck in that. What we're saying is, let's do this. And then we'll work out how it works. And then if we need to later come back and put a mandate that the chief of police will be called every quarter, that's fine. But since right now it's new, we just say regular meetings will work. So maybe we meet with the chief of police comes in front of you twice a year. That can count towards this, right? But what it does is make sure that we are at least keeping it in our conscious that we have to not just do our business separately and in vacuums where they do theirs and we do ours, but have to take the time to schedule out places where we sit, meet, talk about things that are pending and do business that way as well.
Thank you. We have a comment from Brew.
I know right now I'm just a community member attending a public meeting. I don't have any authorities of any kind. However, I have been involved in this commission from very earlier time. So I will actually applaud this particular paragraph. All the entity mentioned in this one, actually, I think if you really want to be a commissioner to help the community, you are obligated to attend them. 13 of you share the workload. Don't put it on the staff. Why? That's because if you do not know how serious this is, look at the previous version of you. Without issue 24, everything they wanted to do to help the community to have a better civilian police relationship to make everybody's life fair. Look at how many obstacles and roadblocks they had to encounter. You guys are the one with issue 24. So the community really has a wish that you will be able to do the actual work. Yes, it's not fair for a civilian not getting the real pay, but unfortunately true. Your work for this particular commission actually is more than a full-time job. Myself, I have started attending MRAC meeting even I was not a real voting member. I represent the community because I represent certain populations being heavily negatively impacted by wrong kind of policing. So please do not think all these meetings we can let staff to go. Right now, doesn't matter in the past or currently, the budget is not big enough for this office to have a 10, 12, 15 staff to begin with. And for you to go to all these meetings, I consider they are required because that will help you to learn how serious, how important this commission is. In the past, they tried to cut off all the connection among all these entities. All these entities, especially like the MRAC, the commission itself, and all these boards, they were all established due to the consent decree. But in the past, there were so many obstacles to let all these entities well connected. That's why the information couldn't flow smoothly. The operations became fragmented. That's why nobody could see the result. It's up to you guys to change that now because we have issue 24. So please don't think that all the meetings should just let the staff to go to it. Don't worry about if the executive director has to punish a staff who couldn't go to the meeting or who didn't go to the meeting. You have to think you should be the one going to the meeting first. Sure, there are so many meetings. This is the reason why there are 13 of you, so you can share the load. And also due to the geographic location, this and that, but don't worry, some of the meeting will be virtual. Please make an effort. Otherwise, why would you come here to be a commissioner, right? You took the oath. You want to serve the community. You really want to help. So show people you mean it. Not only you can learn a lot, that will also encourage the community to start speaking up more, not to be afraid all the time. Yes, for the time constraints, for example, we have to decrease the number of public meetings. But by going to all those meetings, you can learn lots of things. Consider that's a part of your training, even if it was not in the training schedule formally. And you can learn the things, and then you can apply the things you learn. It will be rewarding when you see your effort is paying off. And community needs that. Thank you very much.
I have just one last comment, Chair.
Thank you.
Just one last comment, and I think that one of the lines in this that's important is the one, let's say 10 regular meetings. Could you scroll to the last sentence in that next page, I think? Let's see. It's the sentence that said commissioners may be assigned as liaisons to regular meetings.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, because I think that's that one, right? I think that's really important, and I think we have begun some discussions already about having commissioners actually go to different meetings like MRAC. If there are commissioners with a strong interest in a topic, in effect, they become like the subject expert, bringing that information back to the committee as a whole, because I know that Shandra, Benito, is really interested in that area and has been attending and has given reports back to us when she has been there. So we want to see that same kind of involvement with other people on the commission who might be interested in similar topics.
I would suggest you can use the same method. Right now, some of the ad hoc committees are done, so you will establish all the standing ones. And you have already established a way to assign all 13 people, no, not the 2 co-chairs, but all other 11 people to be, no, yes, because you are concerned, that's why you attend all the meeting. That's the same spirit. So 11 people are assigned to attend all the committees. So you can use the same way to assign all the commissioners, the 11th of them, to go to all these meetings. Sure, it's also good. You will have somebody you will report as your representative if you cannot go for any reason. Yeah, once in a while, because some of the meetings you attend, you do not know they will let you vote or they will only just let you listen. If they give you voting authority, then you do need a representative. When you cannot go there and that's the date you have to vote for something, just like how you do that here. You vote. When you go to those meetings, if they also let you vote on something, because some of the works, we need a smooth connection. That's why they will value your input and they want you to also bring whatever they come up with back here for you guys to do more work with it. So in that case, I would recommend if you find out when you go to that particular entity and they actually say you can vote, then you set up a designated person just in case when you cannot go, but there are certain things needed to be voted. Now you definitely don't want to short of the commission's vote. So that staff will do exactly what you told, vote yes or no, or abstain or whatever. Otherwise, if you guys started going to these meetings, community sees that. It brings out the hope, and practically it will make the function of all these entities better. Then we will pass that roadblock, the obstacles we had in the past. 7 years.
We're working on that right now. We're working on that. Thank you though for your input. Yeah.
So thank you, and I would probably recommend, I know that Shandra is already going to MRAC, but it might be good to have more than one commissioner go to some of these meetings, just so it's not it's not bored by one person who can't be. We'll try our best. Let's maybe take if we can get all the committees and the meetings down, maybe we can take a poll based on interest first, and maybe certain ones like CPRB would naturally go well with accountability. That committee may be able to decide. So I think this is good that we have some framework here. Are there any changes that we want here? Jason, why don't you read number 3 too, so we can get through this section.
And 3 goes back to the crisis communications that you guys adopted. And this is past practice, special business meetings. So in our bylaws, we can call special meetings. The interview for the IG was a special meeting, right? So that's what this is referring to. Special business meetings should be called to discuss important issues, crisis situations, and matters of immediate public concern jointly with city administration when possible, with key decision makers from the division and other city departments invited to attend. So an instance of when we did this was when Tamia Chapman was killed. Within a month, we had a listening session. It was a commission meeting, but it was designed to let the public come and talk about that incident, their feelings. We allowed the administration to come and talk factually about the investigation. And we learned a lot from that experience. But it was one of our most well-attended meetings, and the community did have a lot of feelings that they wanted to express. So that's a perfect example of when you would do something like this during a crisis, right? It's not about doing the investigation. It's about just having the meeting and being aware, letting the community know you're aware, letting them know you want to hear how they're feeling about it. So that's what 3 is talking about.
So do we have any concerns before we move on to these sections? We've discussed these. Is there any changes that we need?
Not a big concern, but you had mentioned, Jason, that CompStat, the name is already changed. Should we update that in here?
Yeah, I can, if I get the new name, I could junk it in there, but
I
the,
mean,
but it says here, it says that the meetings, are gonna change.
Yeah, I saw that.
And we may build out an appendix or something later that has all the known regular meetings. Right now, under the new administration, they've changed some of that, so I don't have the full operational picture of every meeting we should attend yet. But when we do, we'll have a calendar that shows the meetings.
Yeah.
So we don't know, that changes so much to put it in here formally would
Yeah.
mean every time something changes, you need a rule change, so it's,
Why don't we can make a, when we have a motion to adopt this, that you can maybe at least update it to, because I would hate for someone to read this and get confused as to which meeting we mean. If it has a completely different name, but I'm not sure.
and again, that's why it has such as in here. These are just
Yeah.
examples.
And I think the
right?
fact that you say meetings are subject to change, I mean, it's fine. I just figure if there's one that's already, we know.
Well, like the
Great.
Inspector General, should we change that?
Does it say Police Inspector General?
Just say
Well, we
Inspector.
could say Public Safety Inspector General since we're here. But tomorrow that could change.
That could
Sure.
change. We can maybe, yeah,
You
okay.
can just leave Inspector General. It's fine.
Yeah, I think Inspector General's fine,
All right.
'cause that's just wordy.
Or Inspector General of any kind.
The Inspector General.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this list isn't all inclusive either. We can put that if you want, but I think, again, this is mostly procedural guidelines. It doesn't,
Is that okay to put the MREC, that acronym, after the full name?
So it's easier, and certain things like CPOP, right? There's.
Right, because
Yeah.
MREC does go by that acronym very often.
we can put them in here. I always try to,
I don't think they will change that. It has been 7 years, they have not changed it.
so, okay.
Mental health is.
Mental health
Mental health.
and response.
Oh, yeah, that makes
That's
I mean, that's its proper name. It's spelled out. So whatever.
The H
and
is fine.
CPOP maybe.
The H is from that health.
Yeah, no, I was saying, you say MREC.
They call it MREC.
Yeah.
Just so people jargon, that we can be on the same thing. Okay, is there anything else in this section, these sections? You can always change it later on, so, okay, let's move on to the cooperation. You can read, is this how much more?
Of this section?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest is long.
It goes to here, so we can,
We just
stop.
end, we can read the rest of the section, and we can't change the line here, so. Sorry,
Okay, cooperation. Charter Section 115 explicitly states that full cooperation by the Chief of Police, the Executive Head of the Police Force, and the Executive Head of the Police Force is required by law in the performance of its duties. However, the provision alone does not guarantee elimination of conflict. Every effort should be made to resolve conflicts in a healthy and constructive manner between the Commission and the Division of Police prior to taking legal actions. Further, is it advisable that the Commission consider, and that consider is important here, because this is not in 115, alternative dispute resolution, such as mediation by a third party before a legal action is formally filed. An attempt at mediation should not result in loss of right to take action in the future and it is non-binding. The Commission is granted the right to outside legal counsel at its discretion when it deems a conflict of interest exists between the Commission's mission and representation from the city's Department of Law. The co-chairs may lodge a formal complaint with the hiring authority of any employee of the city who does not cooperate with the Commission in the lawful execution of its duties and seek relief as defined in Charter 115.5 up to including termination of the employee. So this links to the law, which says that is the case. So the process for doing it would be here. In this writing, so it's red because we must have flagged this for some reason. Here I'm not. So let's change that. So this here, who does this, right? And how we do it is up to us to decide. It would be a major step because you're asking authorities at the city to become involved because you believe an employee is not following the city charter, right? So it's a complicated thing. The following charter language applies to that. So requesting and timely receiving without the need for making a formal public records request from other city departments and offices, including the Division of Police and Director of Public Safety, information relevant to the Commission's duties that must be disclosed if requested under Ohio Public Records Act. exercising independent judgment and offering critical analysis in the performance of their duties without interference or non-cooperation from any person, group, or organization, including the chief of police, the director of public safety, the mayor, the executive head of the police force, or other division of police employees, and other city officials. City employees who violate this provision may be subject to discipline or censure consistent with city and state laws. 2, dismissal. So this was a printing error in 115. That's why there's a note. So that's why this carries over for us. In the actual charter, there's a note, and it says the paragraph above was set forth in the language adopted by voters. The intended language was likely may be subject to dismissal, discipline, or. So that's where this gets muddy here. But the editor has no discretion to revise adopted charter language. And then here's another provision: full cooperation by the chief of police, division of police, and executive head of the police force required. The chief of police, all division of police employees, and the executive head of the police force must fully cooperate with the commission in performing all of its duties. Failure to do so is terminable offense, and the commission may seek injunctive relief for failures. So here we go. What does injunctive relief mean, right? In city, if you want to push discipline onto an employee, you go through their appointing authority, right? So here it's specifically talking about the chief of police, division of police, executive head of the police force. But up here it says non-cooperation from any person or group, including the chief of police, right? So anyone at City Hall, basically, we can file a grievance against for what we believe is non-cooperation defined under 115. So how do we do that? The recommended way would be having the co-chairs lodge a formal complaint if it was agreed upon that was necessary, right, with the hiring authority. So whoever that person's appointing hiring authority is also their only person that has the ability to discipline in that structure. So for instance, the chief of police, the hiring authority is the mayor, right? So that's who the complaint would go to. The public safety director, same thing, hiring authority is the mayor, right? So those would be slippery situations if you ever tried to do that. Hopefully that's what this section's designed to prevent, right? Is put in place every way we can to cooperate, to go to meetings, to have conversations, to set up a structure where we don't have to go to these extremes. But if we had to, this is saying how we would do that is lodge a formal complaint, right? With the hiring authority that we believe there's a violation of the charter.
I had can we do 2 small fixes first? Can we, just for sake of readability, capitalize commission before consider and the chief of police, so it's referencing us, it's capitalized other word. And then chief of police in the first paragraph. This is the title. I had a comment about this highlighted portion. One, do we feel that we need to at least further flesh out what non-cooperation is, and not every possibility? And does this sentence mean who decides, right? They will, the co-chairs will lodge the complaint, but who decides, and how does that, because it may just be the experience of one commissioner that tries to get information. So what rises to the occasion that we would, as a commission, lodge that complaint?
And I'll just thank you. I had those same questions, and I would like to add on that. Hopefully, we have legal. Hopefully, we have our attorney, and whenever we file complaints, we want to ensure that we're in order. So I would like verbiage, of course, if it's a vote majority, with the legal disposition or something like that to help to ensure that we're accurately forming this complaint and that it's in the legal bounds, if that makes sense.
So to the chair, this is the legal bounds. So it's not defined in the charter, right? So any attorney's interpretation would be subjective. Non-interference means what we define it as in here. So if you want to define it, you're binding yourself to how you define it now in the rules, right? Or you can leave it to what the charter says and make a decision when something comes up. If it qualifies, you can have that conversation, right? How you do that is up to you. But if you write down certain conditions in here of what that means, you're now bound by what you wrote down, right? So they it can be a pro and it can be a con, because that can also be used to say, well, you define non-interference and what I'm doing isn't in your list, right? So if you're gonna make a list, do it in a way that is that works and is flexible and can leave you some options if you feel you're getting interference, because that is broad, without interference and non-cooperation. So, I mean, there are words that are fairly well defined. What does interference mean? What does cooperation mean, right? So how you want to, if you want to write it down deeper than that, you can, but I think they're pretty clarifying there.
To the chair, I also think that there's a difference between policy and procedures. So if that's this ends up being the policy or the rule, we still have a way to develop our own in-house rules. So the rule could be, just an example, that if anybody sees an instance of non-cooperation, or they can bring it to the co-chairs. We have and we have a leadership meeting once a week. We can actually at that point determine whether it moves forward with legal. Yeah. So I think procedures are totally different from policy. This is the policy. We still have the ability to develop an in-house procedure on how anything like that moves forward outside of the commission to become a form of complaint.
And
I just have some concerns that, so right now it will only be the co-chairs to decide if there is, if it's.
It could come from anybody on the commission, bringing it to us, for us to look at it as far as a form of complaint.
Is it going to be a standard that the co-chairs, I mean, as we, without fleshing out, I understand what non-cooperation.
Well, I didn't think you need to flesh out what non-cooperation or interference is, but maybe you should flesh out. Again, this is a draft, so it's meant to inspire conversation and thoughts. So maybe you should flesh out the process of before you send this formal complaint, and that I think is worth a conversation here. But I'm not certain you want to try and define interference or cooperation right now, because until you experience it, you don't know what you think it might be. But if you have a process for, if you feel like you're experiencing it, who do you go to, and then who decides a formal complaint? Those are, I think, legitimate things to add in here. Right now, we did say, before that, if we file the formal complaint, then what we would envision is before we take legal action, right? You're going to do that mitigation thing that we talked about already. So it makes sense, right? Because this would be a very extreme thing if you go after a discipline or termination. So yeah.
We are, but I think, I'm just concerned that, say I make a record, someone makes a records request, what is the reasonable time? Commander Maboot said some records you can turn over in 24 hours. So
that's already defined further, Chair. So that is, we have a legal standard by the court that 21 days is their requirement to turn over documents. So
maybe reference, I think it would just be an issue, non-cooperation would be an issue of time, right? What would be considered reasonable under those things. So, but are we saying that the co-chairs have the final discretion as to whether the complaint is filed?
Say they lodged the formal complaint. So
But I think we need clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we can do that to the chair. I think that's something that we can flesh out on the process, on the procedures. I don't know if it needs to be, because we just filed the complaint. We aren't determining that is the complaint that it can come from anybody in the commission, I would think, even if it goes back to the commission for a vote, the full commission for a vote as a complaint. That moves forward, but I think we have to establish whatever that process is.
Until that's completed.
no, we could do that. We could talk about it now. So let's start with how do you feel a commissioner should report it to the co-chairs? Like, so if they feel like they're working on a project, they're getting resistance, what do you feel the process should be?
Probably they should talk to, if it's part of a committee, if it's like a work group, they probably should talk to the chair of the committee and committee first.
Okay.
And then roping you in, linking you in. Maybe that committee decides what the best procedure would be. And then, because they just want to be the clearinghouse, right? It should be a developed, I think, a fully realized complaint by the time it gets to the co-chairs. It sounds like.
I think we should have like a standard form or Google Doc that we have that's completed. And that way everybody fill it out and complete it.
All right,
We
so
review
let's see.
it in the meeting with legal.
Yeah, I think the thing that's a little bit problematic for me is, I mean, we just want to make sure that every committee is using the same
Yeah,
way of moving a complaint forward.
yeah.
Not just this committee does it this way, this committee does it
Yeah.
another way. So whether we do that using a Google Doc, whether we do that, I think it needs to come forward in writing
Yeah,
and not in terms of a verbal request for consideration. Yeah. And every committee moves forward. If it begins in committee or with a commissioner, it comes forward in writing. Yeah.
So one potential conflict here is that you are seeking to get legal, I guess,
Well,
advice,
our in-house lawyer.
not the Department of Law,
Yeah, our in-house lawyer. So I was just saying our in-house lawyer, you know.
right? Because that would be a potential conflict there, right, of interest?
No,
If
no,
you
I
went
was
to
just
the,
saying
right,
our lawyer.
so
Our CPC.
just to
lawyer.
make sure that we're covering, that there's nothing,
Yeah, especially if you're going after somebody's job, you want to cross your T's and dot your I's.
shall submit a summary of the
incident report.
All right, for review, let's say for review. Okay, so what next? So a commissioner or staff member who feels a city employee is not cooperating or is interfering in any commission business or request shall submit a summary of the incident or incidents in writing to the co-chairs and the executive director for review. The summary shall include any supporting evidence such as emails or text messages. Okay.
So how do we make sure that the rest of the commission is, at least knows what's happening?
I don't think they should know until, well, if it's sustained. Like, let's just say if we have something, it's like, oh, okay, we should give it more time, or something else comes up, and it might be.
But this may, I mean, if it was made to the same department, another commissioner may be having the same issues.
Oh, okay, that is true.
So, it'd probably be better to have it, at least that they can
No.
look at it. If, for example, maybe another commissioner had the same problem with this particular person, they can at least provide supporting evidence. I think it's probably good to have at least that they know about it, the other,
Or maybe that tracking
Commissioners.
system.
yeah.
Yeah, so,
Tracking system.
or,
So we have the written statement, the co-chairs will review. and
will, review and solicit, additional information from other commissioners and sources, something along those lines.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna add, I thought you said something about including the chair of the committee. So maybe
Yeah, maybe
we
the
could
chair
say
should be-
something like, if applicable, the summary, or what does it say?
I mean-
Okay, so writing to the co-chair and executive director for review, if applicable, the chair, the chair of the committee shall be included in,
Yeah.
something like
For
that.
the review. If it's especially the work group.
Okay.
If not, if it's like an independent thing that they've done,
Incidents in writing to the chair,
committee chairs,
to the committee chairs,
commission co-chairs.
and commission co-chairs. I know where I gotta fix that.
Comma,
Commission co-chairs,
comma.
committee chairs, commission co-chairs, and executive director for review.
Wait, let's add a comma. A 0 comma, just so it's clear.
Yeah. Mhm.
For review.
Well, we don't want, everyone doesn't, so this is where, who's gonna review it then, right? So now if we have this many people getting CC'd on it, everyone doesn't need to review it. That's why I took that out. So now we need a clear chain of
Right.
responsibility after we submit it, right?
So my idea was to the chair was to just have, submit a summary, so the co-chairs and the ED will review it, but the committee chair could be included in that communication, not necessarily in the review process, but just so they can see it as well. That was my thought.
Another option would be for that commissioner to talk to the co-chair and sort of develop that together, so it's not just going, so there's a sort of a step before it goes. I mean, I don't know.
To the chair, I would hope that would be a given, like,
Yeah.
you know, they would maybe have a conversation, but mandating conversations is kind of bizarre in the rules, so it would
Yeah,
probably be
yeah.
like, I would hope if they're feeling that way, they would get counsel, and then if someone was like, you should probably go forward with a formal, you know, this is the formalized when you want to pull the trigger on that, but if you're fleshing it out, right, I would think you would talk to fellow commissioners, talk to your chair, talk to the co-chairs, you know,
So why don't we change the request shall submit a summary of the incident or incidents in writing to the commission co-chairs and executive director, comma, as well as committee chairs if applicable.
well, we have that committee chairs here, so,
But you don't have to obligate, they don't have to go to the committee chairs. They have to go to the co-chairs and the executive director.
I think the point of leaving it simple as possible probably makes sense.
Such as email or text messages.
This is just the final step, you know, if you're gonna escalate to
Right.
Yeah.
certain,
I think they should probably talk to the chairs, but some may be independent projects that there's no committee that is attached to.
Director will review and solicit any additional information required. Co-chairs and the executive director will review and solicit any additional information that may
Be relevant.
be relevant. Good. My brain was looking for something. Who said that? All right. So it can be from anywhere, so we don't have to say that. All right. So then, once a investigation, is investigation the right word? Once a review has been completed,
With legal.
co-chairs shall
Lodge the complaint.
so the problem with legal is we don't have an official legal yet. So the only way to legal review is to go to the law department, right? So right now, you're going to do that anyway. So when we get to the point of sending it, right, after we determine, this is about if we feel something happened to us. Again, there's no legal standard here for this. You're not imploring discipline. You're making a statement of, you think this happened to you, right? So it's like going to the police if you feel like you've been the victim of a crime, right? In this instance, you're saying, these things happened to me, right? So you're just doing this internally. You're gathering your information. You're not making a decision if it happened to you because you don't have that authority. You're going to send it over and say, factually, this is what we know. This is what this employee did, right? And you're going to send it to their appointing authority. It's actually the appointing authorities on them then to look at it and see if it's in violation of 115, if it's in violation of any rules. So when you do that, you should CC legal. But I don't see how legal at this point you're not doing anything illegal by saying something happened to you or you feel like they were interfering. You're just saying, these things happen to us. What does it mean, right? So you're not imposing discipline. If you were imposing discipline, I would say, yes, you need legal, but you're not. You're saying, we believe that this is our experience. Here's our supporting evidence for this, which is factual. Maybe we have emails or texts, right? And then we're sending it over as a package to their appointing authority and asking them to review it for discipline. We don't have the authority to discipline or terminate. We have the authority to say, we believe this is happening to us, and then ask them to follow the charter and do something about it, right? So that's where legal would get involved, I think, in the next step with the appointing authority, and then talking to us and saying, okay, now this is what the charter says they should do. The charter isn't making us do anything here. The charter's making them do something, right? So they're the ones who would need to get legal counsel after we do that action, because they would need an explanation of how they follow the charter once we file a complaint. This is basically a complaint. That's all we're filing, is saying, we believe this happened. Here's our supporting evidence. We're asking you to do something about it, and then see what happens. So if we do have an attorney, everything we do like this would be reviewed, but there's no legal, we're not doing anything the charter doesn't say we can do here, I hope that helps a little bit.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
I think, yeah, and we don't know when we're gonna get that in-house attorney soon.
Yeah,
so.
and hopefully we won't ever have to do this. I mean, it's in the law to cooperate with us, so I hope that people will take the law and 115 seriously, and we won't have to do this. But it's good that we're having a process in case this happens. So
The co-chair shall formally lodge the complaint. Is that?
Yes, if it's been determined that complaint
Yeah.
could be reviewed that doesn't determine that.
So I guess process question, do we want, once the review has been completed, the co-chair do we want them to take it back at a committee meeting and get a vote to send a complaint? Or do we want to trust the co-chairs and the executive director to do it if the evidence supports?
I think it should be a majority vote. I mentioned earlier that we can take it back, and at least everybody knows about it at that point. But the thing about it, though, to the chair, the thing about it that makes that difficult, if all the commissioners are not informed of what this complaint is, by the time of the vote, you have people voting without full information. So unless we guarantee somehow that whatever information or review process or whatever goes into a complaint, and that's shared with every commissioner, I think it would be unfair requesting a vote from them if they're not informed. I don't know, but there may be a way to make sure that happens. I want to go back to what Commissioner Audrianna suggested, and that was to use the tracking. Is that something that we could use at the point that the review is done and we believe that there is a reason to lodge a complaint, and before it goes to the full commission for a vote, can it be included in the tracking document?
Tracking system like.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we send anything over and we're expecting a reply, it goes in the tracking. So it would go in there once we send a request for action, right? So if we're asking for documents or we're requesting an action, it goes in the tracker so that people can see the status of it, when we requested it and how long it's been. So that's what the tracker is right now. The other way to do it is, when you file the complaint, we have the shared doc system so people can just share it with the entire commission as they're writing out their initial summary to you. That's up to
I
them.
think the sooner that we probably loop everybody in, it's probably better. It's all information. Another commissioner may have the same concerns. There's no harm in, right? Because either we have to, but do we really want a majority vote? It's a more layer.
I'm asking a question, a process. I don't think it doesn't mandate it in here that you vote, right? So you're adding an extra layer on top of yourselves, right?
Yeah.
And
Why don't we just have
it slows the process. So if a review has been completed, what I would probably recommend is say, a review has been completed and the co-chair shall consult with the executive director if the opinion is that the evidence supports that there was interference, then we send a formal complaint without a vote, right? We just send it. And I think that's the simplest way to do this. But we have to put in there that evidence has to support the accusation, right? If we're asking for discipline, we need to, the co-chairs working with staff needs to have found something definitive, like an email or a pattern of emails, right? That point to the fact that you're requesting something, it's not coming. So that's what I think the standard would be here is you have to factually prove that interference or non-cooperation. So,
However, I think it may be good to, when are we going to publicize these complaints when they're a formal complaint? Does the public have a right to know
well,
about?
everything we did transmit is public, so that would be a public record as soon as we did it. And I would think at your business meetings when we're reporting out, whether it be committee or
Probably should
whatever,
at least say.
we would be saying, hey, we sent a complaint over against so-and-so. I think it's not secretive in any way.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think it should be announced during the meeting.
Right, to the
Yeah.
chair, that's all I was gonna say is that, I think announcement would definitely be necessary, but not necessarily a vote, because that would slow down the process. So maybe after the sentence you're writing now, you could add, complaint will be reported out to the full commission or something like that.
Yeah, so we're all on the same page. I'm aware, we're using the tracking system just so we can see a pattern.
Is that,
We could probably take out once the review has been, if the evidence supports the
okay,
claim, right?
yeah. Right, because we're already saying they're doing, all right.
You could also say, instead of that may be relevant, additional information that may be relevant, just as needed, because, I don't know, it doesn't matter, just wordsmithing.
Right, okay, yeah, makes sense. Or just additional information.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, obviously, if you're seeking it.
Yes, hopefully
Right.
it's gonna be relevant.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Van Leer.
Okay. All right. Are we okay with this?
We could come back, if you don't vote to move anything forward tonight, you're just making edits, you want to sit on it until your next meeting, you can then review it one more time. That's what we've done and move it forward if we think we need to chew on something a little more.
So we'll take out the process,
All right.
take out that question.
Right, that was just me.
Okay, and the rest of it is just legal language and what.
Right, so we're good on that.
Okay. All right, why don't we, the section is done, we can move on to 2.2. Is it okay? Okay, great.
All right, flow of information, very critical.
Can you make it a little bit bigger so we can all,
I could try, sure.
100, make it 150, maybe 125. By the normal text?
Yeah, I see.
There we go.
All right. Data, documents, and testimony are three key elements that will help ensure success of this commission. All Cleveland departments and divisions are potential sources of information on policing in the city, in particular the city's law department, Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Civilian Police Review Board, Office of Professional Standards, and Cleveland Municipal Court. The commission's executive director shall work to have established data and information exchange processes with these departments. While regularly produced reports from the Division of Police, such as monthly divisional notices and discipline disposition letters, should always be shared with the commission, there are times when advanced coordination of information will pay high dividends. In its first year, the commission's executive director shall work with the Department of Public Safety to establish a policy for sharing the following information with the commission in draft format. when discipline by the chief of police or executive head of the police department is decided and prior to official notification to the officer of outcome, when a new or revised general police order is in draft format prior to its implementation, when a change to policy applications and examinations by which new police recruits must be sought out and recruited and screened, including screen for bias, is created, when training curriculum is added, updated, or amended, and when applications for the position of police commander are received. So before I go further, that list there is probably worth questions and answers because it's very comprehensive. But what this list is based on is going back to your very specific final authorities in 115, right? So those things are directly related to it. That's why it's important that they share them in draft form with you, right? The hope is that if we can establish a process between this office and theirs, when they're working on something, before they implement it, especially if you have final authority on it, to get you involved in it in some way, that's the goal. That is why I list the bare minimum there in those bullets, to have them try. The most difficult one is going to be this. So the chief of police and the executive head of the police have disciplinary hearings, right? Afterwards, they draft a decision. There is a moment in time, a very brief one, where before they implement that decision, if we had a way to look into what they were about to do and make sure we don't have any significant objections to it, right? That will save us a lot of time, energy, and effort later if we have to do a hearing. Now, this was something that I discussed with the monitoring team prior, and that's why I included it in the draft, because it's very unique. If we can get this to work, then the need for us to have to overturn discipline later will probably be small, because we can intervene in the discipline if we feel it's way off base before it's actually finalized. But it's a very fine window, and there's a lot of time consideration to this. So we would have to determine that process. So what we're doing here is not saying it's going to happen, but remember with this list, we're asking either myself or whoever serves as the executive director in this first year to work with the department to try to establish processes for these things. So these are goals that we're setting to try to have smooth and efficient processes laid out ahead of time to save having conflict later on down the road, right? So that's why those bullet points are in here. So any questions on that before we go down?
Should we edit those? Because I think this is very, it's a little redundant. We don't even need of outcome, this prior to official notification of the officer, right? That's what it's very clunky.
When discipline by the chief of police or the executive head of the police department is decided.
How about when
right.
discipline is decided by the chief of police? Move that. It's very, you don't have the verb there. Just reads very, it's decided by the chief of police or executive head of police.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would put a comma, erase that and put a comma.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to official notification of the officer, prior to official notification of the officer.
To the officer of the outcome. So they're going to get a letter that says this is the outcome of your disciplinary hearing. We're trying to catch it before that letter is finalized and sent. So ideally, so the thing here is you're probably going to have to rely on staff and your in-house counsel to look at these, right? And you're going to have to significantly trust staff to flag ones that need immediate attention from a select group of commissioners who are in that discipline or accountability committee, right? Because this is something where you won't have time to wait for your next big meeting to do. They're not going to agree to do that, right? But they may agree to a very short window hold for a brief review if we have a firm process in place. And even that it would be an ideal outcome if they agreed. And they may not right away, but I think we can convince them to give this a shot. And the time when the monitoring team in place at the time thought this was a great way to to save time, energy, and effort later.
Can we move of outcome after notification? It's just another slice again. And prior to official notification of the outcome to the officer. It's very awkward the other way.
Okay,
Okay, great.
any other questions about this?
A comma after bias, including screen for, because it's just a phrase, right? Including, wait, what? Screening for bias, can we do that? Is there screening, including screening for bias? Looks great, okay. When training gets added, can we just add the serial comma all the time, because it will lead to confusion eventually. Before
Right
that.
here?
Yeah. Applications for the position are received, okay. Okay, are there any other position?
Inspector General, you can add that if you want,
We don't know.
because that's the other mandated.
Okay. All right, is that okay? Anything else?
Again, there's no guarantee that these things are going to result in successful
Right.
policies that we negotiate on how to do it, but these should be priority points to get them to see they need to work with us on these points far in advance.
To the chair, so how and when will these be shared?
Well, that's what, so all we're doing here is saying the executive director will establish a policy if they're able to. So you're mandating the executive director go to the city, negotiate or attempt to negotiate a policy on these issues, and in that policy, it will say when they're going to share them. So right now we're not to that point, but you're giving a directive through your protocols here to this office to go try to do our best to have a policy in place with this. So we're not to that point yet. When we have a policy in place, then we'll solidify that in the rules. We'll come back and say this is the policy. But right now we need a starting point.
Yeah, this is part of a bigger discussion that was had a while back and came up again fairly recently in terms of the timing of this, so, I mean, it doesn't establish by when or anything like that, and I think we had talked before about that, but, so it could sit there easily with no, I mean, how do we, will it be your priority as executive director to reach out and establish this policy? I have the same note here that that I made before. When do we reach out to the Division of Police or Public Safety regarding receipt of sharing information to create these policies?
So the day after you put these rules is the day after I'll pursue these policies. So that's why I think it's good to put it in the rules to mandate me in this position now, but if it's not me, someone else to get to work on this. Now you could put a time on it, but
No.
it's unfair to put a time on it because it's not entirely, the point is for the executive director to start the process, right? They have no control over how long it may take. And then there's really nowhere, if these don't come into fruition, then I would say, if I'm the executive director and I'm doing this, I will then understand why they feel we shouldn't be involved in this. And then those are things we can bring back and say, okay, we didn't get far on this. This is the reasons why they say they don't want to cooperate with us on this. And then we can strategize how we will move forward to meet our mandate, knowing what they're for and what they're against at that point, as far as how much assistance they'll offer us, right? The law pretty much says we have to be involved in these bullet points here. So I don't anticipate they'll resist us. But what I want to do is get them in writing how they're going to support us in these issues, right? So that's why I want them to create co-policies with us that say, if we're looking at a commander, this is what we'll do, and this is the timeline we'll do it, and this is when we'll notify the commission, and this is when they'll be involved in the process. Because you see with the Inspector General, there was a little bit of concern about when we should have been in that process, right? But there's no policy to guide it. So they're just shooting from the hip. I want to negotiate policies that say when commander positions come up, how soon we're involved in that, and bring them back to you so that we can all be on the same page.
And to the chair, we see that also in this second bullet when a new and revised general police order is in draft format prior to implementation, because we've seen one that has moved forward to implement that never came to this commission for review or approval.
Yes, and that is 100% correct. We have a policy that is dated as implemented after you all were seated and we were not approached. That's why it's important to have a policy that guides, that says at what point when they're creating a policy will they involve us, right? We don't want it too early. We want to give them their best. They want to bring us their best polished effort, right? And then it makes it easier. So that's what I'm hoping to capture is a process for that, right?
Thank you for this.
Thank you. So let's continue. It is now 7:22.
So policy for sharing these documents and timelines for response action by the commission when warranted should be agreed upon by the CPC and the Department of Public Safety and adopted in this manual. So once we have the policy, we will then update the manual to include what the actual policy for each one of these bullet points is, right? In the absence of an agreement, the commission shall use its authority to establish a policy or policies for the division. Now, we can only mandate the division. We can't mandate other city components, but we can most likely, by my read, if they don't agree, we can then mandate a policy to them that says, when you create a draft, you'll notify us when it's, at this point. But we don't want to do that from the rip. We want to give them a chance to negotiate it, right? Regular dashboards and reports shared by command staff and executive leadership related to the Division of Police, Civilian Police Review Board, and OPS should automatically be shared with the commission along with all divisional notices when they are distributed. Now, we can't mandate that to them, right? But we can mandate that if we know of them, we pursue them. So that's kind of why this is in here, right? They could say no, but then again, we can go back up and say, well, is that non-interference then, right? You're creating these dashboards, you're sharing it with internally with your commanders or with stakeholders. We should be included in those. So that's why I put that in there. We don't know exactly what that landscape is right now, but I do know that they do have dashboards, that they're starting to use dashboards. You've heard them come and say that. So I'm going to work to get anything that's put out on a regular basis, we get CC'd on that. Right? If possible, under the law, access should be given to the designated CPC staff to run queries in any police data and record management system. So that cuts out the middleman, and if we could get that to come to fruition, it will be helpful, right? We don't want to look into active investigations. We're never going to ask to do that, but we should be able to query their record system for, how many. So that way you don't have to make a formal request if you want to know how many occurrences of a certain crime happened in an area, right? We should just, if we can get direct access to the same query system that they run it in, that would be our best solution. That's why I'm saying we're going to shoot for that in this rule.
So I have a question. Unless you
Go ahead.
Just the first part of that statement, if possible under the law. So I don't understand what that means. It's like, does a law say that we should have this access, or like
no so under the law means 115 says we should have access to data, right? But there are other layers in the law. So who can look into active law enforcement investigations, right? So that's why that's in there.
As allowed by the law.
As allowed by the law, yeah.
Okay.
So I can highlight this, and we can maybe revisit the wording if we find possible wording that's a little bit better,
I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
The commission's executive director shall request a records liaison be assigned by the Department of Public Safety to serve as the principal manager of all commission requests. That's important too. It's hard to mandate. I think Dr. Anderson, for the most part, will facilitate this right now, as long as the consent decree is here. But one point of communication on both ends is ideal. So And then they distribute it down to whoever's appropriate to fulfill that request. So it's 1-to-1, and then they work on their side, we work on our side. So when it comes back, I'll get it to whoever requested it, same process. This person should also have authority to meet requests in a timely manner without delay. The same request will be made to CPRB. Requests for data and information from any city department by a commissioner shall be made through the executive director in order to ensure proper tracking. So we're already implementing this ahead of the rule. Delivery and archiving of the request. So
To the chair, I just want to make sure that we're consistent with that. That requests are made through the executive director, not copying the executive director on it, but the request is made from the executive director to whatever other city employee that we need to do it. And we just need to be consistent across the board with it. I just want to put that on the record.
Chair, can I continue?
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah.
So this is important. The previous commission, and it has a little backstory to this before we get to this order. We went through a longer than a year battle to receive discipline records. And there were other records that we were slow, or what I would consider, in this era, I would probably consider what they did interference on some levels, right? So that would be coming through that non-interference or non-cooperation, right? They just weren't giving us what we needed to do our job, or they were giving it too slow, so that it would become stale. By the time we got it, we were long past the need for it. So we had to ask the DOJ and the monitoring team to intervene. And this is the only time where we've had to do this in the consent decree so far. There was a motion filed for an order from the judge and a counter motion arguing against allowing us to have access to the data, and a decision had to be made. So it's a good thing for us, because although we have a lot more power now, right, we also have the consent decree to back us up on some things. And what Judge Oliver did is he ruled on the side of the DOJ in favor of the commission to receive data and information requests in a timely manner. So if our request falls under the consent decree and under his doctrine, which pretty much everything does, because the commission is in the consent decree, they have to follow this particular timeline. And this is important for commissioners to know this. The city and the CDP shall provide all information within 21 days of receipt of a future request for information from the CPC, or such other deadline agreed upon with the CPC, the United States, and the monitoring team. If the city and the CDP object to a future request for information from the CPC, they will submit their objections to the CPC, the United States, and the monitoring team within 7 days of receipt of the request. If either the United States or the monitoring team disagrees with the city's and CDP's objections to the request within 7 days of the objection being made, the city will produce the information, or it may petition the court to relieve it of its obligation to produce the information within 7 days after receiving notice of disagreement. This order does not mean language in 115.5 that mandates cooperation does not apply. The commission has subpoena power, and the commission shall seek legal counsel anytime the division or any other city agency refuses to share information it requests, right? So if we ever get to that point where they're like, absolutely no, we have two avenues here. If it falls under the consent decree, the city may choose to use this 7-day process here, right? Or in the alternative, they may choose to not trigger this, but resist us later, and then we'll have to get legal counsel for what to do here. But 99% of our requests right now, in my opinion, as the executive director, I'm not an attorney, have to be provided within 21 days. So this is big for us because it's a standing order from a federal judge. So that guarantees us timely. Some things have been coming faster already, right? But for the larger requests that are more controversial, I anticipate you can bet that 21 days will be your timeline, right? So when you're planning your committee work and things like that, you can anticipate that you have to plan your work around the fact that you may not have that data for 21 days. And that's if they don't resist, right? And I think this is good. There should be, and this goes back to that mediation thing, right? I think the 7-day standard is really good for us too, because without the judge intervening or the DOJ or the monitoring team, we do need to have a process after they're gone for if they are going to disagree with us, right, on a data request. How do we mediate that, right? So if we give them 7 days to come up with a reason why they can't do it, that's a good standard for all future, right? So you have 7 days to respond if you're not going to be able to meet this request. So those two numbers, 21 and 7, I think are really helpful for us. Be glad you have it, because it was absolute misery to not have a timeline and not have an order on our side. And you guys have further, you can subpoena, which has never been a power that we have. So you can go beyond that. And all the way to, the local municipal court with, if you run into a problem where you'd have an attorney representing you and the city representing themselves on why they shouldn't give data. So you have a lot more power and options, but this gives you a timeline, and it's important that it's in the rules. Any questions on that? All right. So beginning in its second year, the commission shall make a good faith effort to share a strategic framework with the community and stakeholders each year no later than January 31st. The framework shall contain objectives and priorities for the following year, including any audits of performance or planned major policy work. The commission shall solicit community feedback in the months leading to the development of the plan to ensure that the objectives of the commission continue to align with the needs and concerns of various communities in Cleveland. The framework does not limit what can be done in a year, and the commission reserves the right to add or remove work from its framework should a need arise. So again, historical. What does this mean? It's helpful to have a roadmap of what you're doing, right? You have a ton of possibilities, a ton of GPOs, a ton of things you can investigate. It's not beneficial to not try and have a strategic plan. You need it for a couple reasons: to support your budget, right? So when you bring a plan forward and say, this is, for instance, this summer, if all the committees submit their planned strategy for what they're going to work on in 2024, right? We put that into a master document and say, these are the planned objectives and policies that we want to look at in 2024. Doesn't mean you can't look at other things, but it helps to have a plan. We also have to build a budget around that. We were asked to do this by the DOJ and the monitoring team because it was a little bit chaotic in how we were deciding what policies we were getting involved in, especially after the major consent decree work was done and we had more artistic license to go where we wanted to go. And the division, it made sense professionally. You're putting the division on notice, you're putting the city on notice to be prepared to give you documents and things in the coming time, 6 months or a year, in places that you're looking. And plus, it's a common practice. A good model for this is in Chicago. So they have the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and also the Office of the Inspector General there. They put out a strategic plan for a year and say, these are the places we're looking in 2024 or 2025 or whatever, right? And you're not set to that. Something can come up and the committee has to be reactive. That's why we call it a framework. But it is really helpful in budgeting, it's helpful for transparency, and it's helpful for planning what you're going to need in the future. And that's why I would like to see it made an official policy to try and do that every year. So it'll be done in conjunction with our budgetary cycle. When we go to council and they ask us, why do you need this money? They'll say, well, here's our strategic plan. Here's what we want to do in 2024. Here's the policies we're going to look at. Here's the places we'll need to do a community survey or bring in additional analysts or whatever we need to supplement our strategy. It takes time and energy and effort administratively to get this done. But should we pass this as a rule, it will really help with our overall professionalism and bring us immediately up to speed with some of the organizations that are really good at doing this already in the United States.
So in the Chicago plan, is there a longer timeline to, given like a 5-year plan?
You can. So so this mandates a year, right? But I think we should also consider when we do our year talking in terms too, right? Because 4 years isn't that long a period of time when it comes to reform work, right? And so this is it's going to sound mind-blowing, but it could take a great deal of that to just affect real change and measure the outcome of that change in that period of time. So you can also extend it beyond, but you should get a little broader as you go beyond, right? So you should say, here's the important things on our radar. And to the point of the community survey, we already have a baseline community survey we've done every year. It will need to be tweaked a little bit because in order to get funding for it, initially, we had to keep it in the lanes of the consent decree. We can go broader now, but any plan we do should be based on what we know and also where the community's telling us to go, what's important to them, right? What do they want to see us tackle first? Otherwise, we'll be doing what's best for maybe us or somebody's idea, and it may not align. So and it sounds big, but as we move forward, each year that we do this, we'll get better at it, and the staff will get better at it, and we'll be able to do this in a limited time period. It won't take as much administrative time.
Thank you. Can you continue?
So with the exception of the first year, an annual report shall also be prepared no later than March 1st of each year that summarizes the work and outcomes of the commission in the preceding year. We do that already. It's mandated in the consent decree. Our annual reports are exceptionally well received. We get a lot of compliments on them. So that process is something that is easy to do. And it may be worth putting in here that this is mostly a staff endeavor. To create these reports, they just need to be reviewed. So if you feel I need to say that in there, it doesn't add extra work to you. So the annual reports every year are drafted in this office, and then they're sent to, it'll probably be the outreach committee for review and edits, right? And then took up to the top for a vote. That's how they've gone out in the past. I think that's kind of implied here, but I don't want people to feel like the commissioners themselves have to do all this work to generate these reports or to generate the framework. So if you think it's worth noting that staff are the authors of these things in conjunction with the commission, we can do that. All right. So the commission shall also endeavor to publish factual material reports, recommendation, and notices as the commission deems important and within the scope of its work. So any questions on anything we covered here?
I do want to make a few small changes, and then there's something a little bit more concerning at the top.
Here?
If we can go all the way to the top. Thank you. For the comma after documents, I know I'm going to get, I swear to you, it's important. Divisions and Cleveland Municipal Port, Office of Professional Standards, comma, Commissioner's Executive Director, shall work to have established, shall work to establish. Okay. They produce reports. Okay. Maybe another word for high dividends.
Where are you at?
There are
Commissioner
times
Chair?
when advanced coordination mission will pay high dividends. Maybe just another.
Yeah, it's just
Will
using the financial
collaborate-
world.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Well,
Fortify or strengthen all stakeholders or whatever. I don't know what. If you think that type of language will be convincing.
will provide benefits. How's that?
Tangible benefits. Concretely beneficial, how about that? No, be beneficial, okay, whatever.
We could just take out all adjectives and leave it as what it is.
In the first year, comma, will be attached to the public commission in draft format. If you go down. We changed this already.
Mm-hmm.
And then policy for sharing. Policy should be agreed upon by. Maybe just add a clause there so it's easier. So you mean policy for sharing these documents timelines for response action is connected to timeline.
Policy for sharing these documents and timelines for response action by the commission when warranted should be agreed upon.
When
Policy
warranted?
for sharing these, I have to go back and look at what
Maybe we should write this all in
Yeah.
active verb tenses, it'll be a
Yeah.
lot.
policy for sharing these documents, and response timelines, we can say.
Yeah.
You want me to just open the door?
I don't know if that is the door, Lou.
Is there or not?
Followed by the end department. Adopted in its manual.
Yeah.
In the absence of agreement, the commission shall use this authority to establish a policy or policies for the division that not addresses, because it's policies, this section of the manual. Regular dashboards and reports shared by command staff and executive related to division of police. Capitalized division, is it capitalized?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's depends where you
Should
see
be
it.
automatically CPRB, comma. No PI should be automatically shared with the commission on the RTJ. If possible, so this is the part. If possible, what did you say? According to, is it under the
As
law?
allowed under the law.
As allowed under the law. And I don't know, do we need limited access? Is that gonna be, it's access, right?
If possible, how about this? If possible, access should be given to the designated CPC staff to run queries in any police data and record management system that is not prohibited by law.
So I guess this is again, words for the man. I feel like if possible, puts it like, well, the city could say it's not possible,
Well,
right?
and that's the thing. See, we don't,
In accordance
we
with law.
can't we can mandate this. So we could just say access should be given. This is my daily battle with this touchpad here. It's like a ghost in the machine. Okay, I see.
Access should be given,
So access should be given to the designated CPC staff to run queries in any police data and record management system that is not prohibited by law. All right? Does that sound better? So there are some that prohibit civilian access. They're law enforcement only.
access should be given.
That's what we're getting at here. So you can't look into active investigations. Like we wouldn't be able to get
How about
into,
management system, in any police data and record management system is not prohibited by law. Because it could be many systems, right? In any system, you don't need that as.
access should be given to designated CPC staff to run queries in any police data and record management system that does not prohibit
Public access.
civilian
Civilian.
access by law. How's that? So for instance, Raina Isa, who you met, Dr. Isa, is a civilian, right? And those data record systems that she's using are walled off. She may even have special access to some of them, but I'm betting she can't look into the ones that are prohibited. So that's why this is important. I think we can do this. I think it's doable. I think in some instances we may even be able to mandate it, and it gives us an absolute advantage in our ability to run reports, look at data in the raw form and all that stuff without having to go through gatekeepers. So
Can I make this a little simpler? I think it's just useful. Probably.
it's your
When civilian access is not prohibited by law, comma, access to any police data and record management system should be given to designated CPC staff to run queries. It's just out of order, all this stuff. It's just when not prohibited by law, right? Civilian access. designated CPC staff should be given access,
Ability, well, I'd say ability. I'll give it
access and ability.
access.
To inquiries in any, on
Any
throughout.
It's probably in, I don't know,
Yeah,
it's
in
a
any,
data and record management system.
let's put a comma after civilian access. Okay. So using the paragraph, okay, alright. The commission request, like, oh, this. The commissioners then shall requested records, please, be assigned, not should be assigned, you have shall there, so you don't need the helping verb. Shall requested records be assigned
Request a records liaison, yeah, there's,
by the Department of Public Safety, so there's the principal manager of office. Okay, records provided by the commissioner shall be made to delivery, comma, tracking delivery, comma, and archiving the request. Okay, and then the rest is that.
and this is the order, you can't edit the order, so,
Okay. And this order does not mean the language. Can we, a little clunky. This order does not mean that it's a double negative. Does not.
Well, it sort of has to be that because it's saying
Does not
that
mean
the judge's order doesn't
this
mean
order
that language in 155
shall not
doesn't-
preclude, shall not preclude.
I mean, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
does not mean that language in these countries does not apply. Okay, just be a part.
Here's where you're relative.
Again, it's a year to make good faith there's a street. Okay. Session manager. March 1st.
alright.
Okay, just a comment, not now, but when you finalize this, there are instances when you capitalize city
Yeah.
in certain departments and times you don't, but I just think you just need to go through it and standardize it. And I would
Okay.
say on this sentence, on that one sentence that we have labored long and hard on that begins with when, I think we need to change that and start it with a more positive comment and not when. But, just,
which-
I wanna just.
which
throw
one
out.
is that?
Keep scrolling, when the law does not. I think it was better with access beginning it before than the
Well,
word
but no,
when,
but then it's a complete misplaced modifier. You can't, if you want to tag all, it's not about positivity, it's about clarity at this point.
I think it should, I think it's, okay, it's not that important, but I do think it could still have clarity without beginning it with when. But, okay, however,
I
but
could say if the law does not prohibit
Yeah.
civilian access.
I was just looking at, some of the rules for rules, and writing rules. I was just looking at some of that language for
is there-
writing the rules.
I think to Commissioner Ridgeway's point, is there a reason why there's so many passive verb constructions that make
I-
it very,
It should be
it's fine.
active,
yeah, should be
It should
active,
be
well, then we, because it would
Yeah.
make a lot
You
more
can- we can-
clarity.
yeah.
You can edit it, I mean, it's
Okay, what?
part exhaustion.
Yeah, we're exhausted right now.
Yeah, I am too. But let
Right.
me just ask one.
It all is an opinion of the reader. I could probably get 10 different opinions on clarity and how clear it is and preference of sentences. And there's a lot of different writing styles in the world. So that's the simplest answer.
So let me ask a question. At what point do we move these rules? Because these haven't been voted on. So I guess what I'm asking is, can rules be moved forward for full commission approval without the complete section 2.
Yeah.
Like we have moved out. So there are some here that will depend on, there are some committees that have been established, police-related committees that were established at the last meeting that would need some of these pieces and parts to operate. And we, we're moving through them very slowly. So I'm just wondering at some point, when can we move forward some of these for full commission approval without the whole section 2? I mean, we did that for Brady, Gigolo, and some of the others, but I think we just need to be cognizant of the fact that some of the rules, some of the committee's rules, some of the committee's work would be predicated on these rules being approved.
Well, we're trying as hard as possible to move through these because they're all kind of important. Just 2.3. We can't, I mean, we still have the evidentiary hearings, right?
To the chair, we have 2 rules that have been read through. If you're comfortable for them, what you've done in the past is just make a motion for 2.1 and 2.2. If you're comfortable. If you need more time to think on them, make sure there's nothing you missed, then you have 8 minutes left. You may want to consider taking a break here and scheduling your next meeting.
I'm not asking to the chair. I'm not asking that we move any forward tonight. I'm just saying that we need to identify what rules are needed for some of these police-related committees. And if sometimes we may have to take them out of sequence to get them where they can do their work. And I think a message came forward today from, was it Benito? I can't remember, but there was a message that came forward today where she was asking that some rule be approved. So we need to identify what rules need to move forward for full commission vote in order for the police-related committees to do their work. And then, we can come back and, and discuss them.
We also have 2.9 that's never been, 2.9, the one about the budget that's never passed and they can work. I get you, but I just think that, should we make a motion to pass these? Because I just imagine if we come back next time, it will be, again, reading, because they're very dense. Do we feel comfortable with it, or do we want to? And for next time, may I suggest that a much more active reading, 2.3, 2.4? Are we allowed to make comments before we come to the meeting, or write down more actively?
So the past practice, to the chair, past practice is, if you read it all in advance and you come in prepared with your comments, then we don't have to take as much time to go through each thing. So
I think they read it a few weeks ago, so if you read it again, if you want to send just like, these are the sections I want to look at within these rules, then I can put them on the agenda, and then we can move more quickly if we can highlight it. So I understand, because after 2.3, 2.4, we still have evidentiary hearings, so there's a lot to do. Right, but at least, do we want to move forward 2.1, 2.2? Are we comfortable? We need to set a meeting. I'm happy to meet more frequently or next week to get 2.3, 2.4 done. How long is 2.3, 2.4? Short?
Just finish short, 2 pages maybe.
Yeah, hopefully we won't not need to have that just yet.
Like 2.4 is just 1 page.
And after that point, we will be done with this front section of 2, right?
2.5, and then
It's
we go to the 2.5 is other independent investigations.
So if next week, if we could cover 2.3 to 2.5. But do we want to set another meeting? Do we want to vote?
Sure, I thought you did, because I remember something about
Oh, okay. We started with Brady Gigolo, because we had the people that's why we skipped out a sequence, because we have people come in to speak about it.
Because I thought you said you were gonna send out a doodle, so that might have been mine. So I didn't know if that was sent.
Well, now we, I think, because summer is coming along, it would be good to have these finalized before everybody kind of goes on their vacations and stuff like that. So I am willing to, and let's set one. Which day of the week is not good? Sharina only has Thursday as a problem. Is there any other problem dates?
Or if we're looking at next week, then Monday is the hiring committee meeting, and then Wednesday is our full meeting.
Wednesdays are full meeting. So we were always meeting, I think, on a Tuesday, right? Until we got out of sequence. Monday sometimes, but we can't have that because of the hiring committee. We can do Tuesday. Tuesday, okay?
23rd.
The 23rd. We will not be able to have this in time for Wednesday though, because it would be 24 hours turnaround, but we'll at least, if we can pass these two, we can have two for the 24th.
I'm unlikely to be able, I'm in Columbus for work on Tuesday.
So you,
Okay.
that's 2 people.
Well,
I guess
I was telling you.
So
on
we need,
Tuesday.
let me text Chandra. Okay. Do we want to make a motion for these?
And I feel like there were concerns about the language, but I think the general, they're pretty much done, it's just.
I would hate to go back over again.
There's no reason to, yeah, so I think it's fine.
So what,
So if,
Tuesday, 23rd?
we're still, but we're making a motion for these two, 2.1, 2.2. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I motion to move sections 2.1 and 2.2 to the full commission for approval.
I second.
Do we need a kind of mitigating language about whatever you're gonna fix? No?
No, you're just moving it forward, so.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor to move 2.1 and 2.2 to the full commission. We'll take a vote right now. Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
And I vote yes. So motion passes. Thank you very much. Ms. Benito is available on Tuesday, so it seems like that is the best date because of the Monday meeting. So Tuesday, the 23rd, from 6 to 8 p.m.
23rd to 6 to 8.
Is that okay with everybody? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any further comments? No? Okay, well, we will, so that will be the meat of some of our kind of accountability work. So, Jason, is this available as a public document, this section yet?
The draft section?
Yes.
No, only by request. We don't have it posted anywhere because it's a draft. So
Okay,
if people are at the
So-
meetings, like Lou has a copy, we put them here,
we'll try to
put
have
them on the
copies.
screen. If people email us,
Okay.
yeah. Lou has a copy. I just gave Lou a copy. So.
Okay, so if you would like a copy, then you can contact the executive director, and then everybody will be on the same page. Please read it again to refresh our memory. And thank you so much. We'll see you next Tuesday. I adjourned the meeting, sorry.
I knew.
All right, hold on. Let me kill.
Oh, okay.